What is going on YouTube and Diablo fans? My name's Andreas, and as always, welcome back to Mana and Motherboards. So in today's video, I want to try and keep it as brief as possible and sort of as to the point as possible, and we are just doing a follow-up video on last week's build guide for the hybrid Echoing Strike and Tainted build comparison to the pure Tainted and Blood Boil sort of focused Tainted build. So we had one variant which was Tainted and Blood Boil focused, and then another variant that was Tainted and Echoing Strike Hex Purge based. So this is going to be a little follow-up on that video and just showing you a budget oriented version and variant of that. Last week's video we focused very much on endgame sort of best in slot style gear, and a lot of people have requested that we just test out how this build sort of interacts and reacts with a more budget approach. So if we quickly have a rundown on the character, when we look at the stats, we've got enough strength to wear our gear. All of the rest of our points are going into vitality for as much life as possible. We are hitting 110% faster cast rate, which is above that 75% breakpoint. And then moving on to our skills, we have got one into each of our sigils so that we could use sigil death. Then we have one into blade warp for mobility. Then the rest of our points are going max into tainted, max into blood boil, max into demonic mastery, and then the rest into engorge to get as much physical damage as possible to help us with immunes. So that is our build for this tainted blood boil focused warlock build. And then just having a look at our gear, we just have a couple all-res grand charms, and then our gear is very basic. We have got a spirit sword, a law helm, rising sun amulet, a spirit monarch, authority rune word for our chest armor, a credendum belt with all res. Then we have a faster cast rate life and res ring, faster cast rate mana and res ring. We've got a set of silkweave boots and mage fist gauntlets. So a very basic budget oriented setup. So already in the first week of ladder last week, I had already got better gear than what is shown here. So it is very easily and quickly obtainable to get gear of this sort of caliber and spec. So what we're going to do is quickly run around and just show you what this blood boil variant and this tainted blood boil variant is like on a budget setup. And as you can see, there aren't very many immunes right at this point in time in this area, and this is players 1 in Hull. I just actually need to double check that it's players 1 and not players 8. Yes, we are on players 1. And as you can see, the Tainted do a fantastic job along with our mercenary that I'll just show you quickly. It's a regular insight mercenary with treachery and a Tull Rush's death mask. And it's a very basic setup for the merc, and overall this is just a very basic setup for this build, but it definitely comes online with this amount of gear and this caliber of gear, and it definitely does really respectably well for hull difficulty and these sorts of areas. So I'm going to go into a Tull Rush's tomb here where there are a couple more fire immunes, and we'll just show you what that looks like with this gear and this build. Again, when the monsters and mobs aren't fire immune, they go down within seconds. We haven't really needed to use blood boil whatsoever just yet. We are going to look for a couple fire immunes just to show you exactly what we are talking about. And yeah, I think that this build is really incredibly strong. I've been playing it in the new ladder season and it has been doing fantastically for me. I think that it's a lot of fun to play. It works really well on a budget, as you can see here, and in general it's really fun and really powerful for low level gear. It also helps in hardcore that you are a summoner build. Not that I am playing hardcore, but just for those of you who are interested in hardcore, it's very hardcore friendly, it's very beginner friendly, very gear friendly, and just overall probably one of the premier builds for the Warlock this season. We're just using Engorge there to get some more attack speed out of our Tainted, and also just heal them up a little bit there. Seems like we just can't encounter any fire immunes right here when we are trying to. Do I not have any portals? There we go. So what I'm going to do is just go to the Chaos Sanctuary a bit and show you a bit of gameplay there, so you can get another idea of how this build stacks up against immunes. So we're in the Chaos Sanctuary. There are a ton of fire immunes in this area, and that will give us a better idea of how this build reacts to immune. So as you can see, here are Pit Lords who have high health and a lot of fire res, as well as being fire immune, and using Blood Boil we are able to take care of these immunes in, I would say, a fair amount of time for the gear that we have at our disposal. So we do cast Sigil Death just to hopefully get a little extra damage there from our sigil to explode monsters that are at 13% health, and that just gives us a little extra damage on executing them at low health. So this build by no means at this gear level can really rip through fire immunes, but it does a fair job in dealing with fire immunes. And a lot of people have complained that this build doesn't do too well when it comes to fire immune areas. I think personally with a little bit better gear it really comes online in dealing with immunes, and where my current ladder character is sort of geared at the moment, just with a Sunder Charm and a little bit more plus skills, it really tears through any area regardless of immunities or not. So I think that gives us a good sort of representation of the pure Tainted Blood Boil variant here. So what we're going to do is just quickly use one of our tokens, and then we are going to respec, and we are going to show you what the hybrid Tainted with Hex Purge variant looks like. So in terms of our skills, what we're going to do is max out our Tainted. We are going to max out our Blood Boil. We are then going to put 10 skill points into Demonic Mastery. Moving on to the Eldritch skill tree, we are going to put, I'm actually just going to quickly change this up just a little bit to make it a little bit more fair. We're not going to actually max out our Tainted. We are going to put a few less points into it just to get a bit more points, because we are only level 73 at the moment, so we do need a little bit more points to put into the Eldritch skill tree. So we're just actually going to do that in order to make this a little bit more of a balanced sort of comparison, and just make it a little bit more realistic of where you would have your skill points at this point in time. So going back to the tree, we've got 20 into 20 into Tainted, 10 into Blood Boil, 10 into Demonic Mastery, 1 into your sigils. I mean, you could just use Sigil Lethargy, but I'm just putting it in Death as well. So then we're going to put 1 into all of our Eldritch skill tree except for Hex Siphon. We are then going to put 20 into Mirrored Blades and the rest of our points into Hex Purge. So that is what this variant looks like. We are going to be using the exact same gear. All we are going to change is a little bit of attack rating, just so that we have a much better chance of hitting our enemies. So we're going to take off the Rising Sun, take off one of our faster cast rate rings, and then we are going to use Angelics and a Ravenfrost just to bump up our attack rating, and ultimately then our chance to hit enemies, because that now does apply with our Echoing Strike in Season 14, we do need attack rating. So I just need to quickly look at my skills here and set those up. Blade Warp, Echoing Strike, okay, Blade Warp there. Eldritch Blast, Psychic Ward, Hex Purge, Tainted, and we need Engorge. I don't think we put a point into Engorge, so we'll just leave it at that. I would normally put a point into Engorge, but anyway, let's just have a look at how this variant works with the budget gear at the moment. So we'll quickly go to the Canyon of the Magi again. I think we will struggle with mana just a little bit because this build does not have any dual leech on it. We only have an Insight Mercenary, so mana might be a little bit more of an issue for us, but even with that being said, I think we still should do just fine. So if we have a look, oh, our Mercenary just died, that's going to affect us quite a bit. Do we actually have mana leech? We have life leech because of spirit, but we don't have any mana leech as far as I am aware. So as you can see, when it comes to fire immunes, we definitely have a bit better of a chance of killing them and dealing with them. And overall, I would say that sort of during your playthrough or at this level of gear and build, the hybrid version does seem to be doing slightly better than the pure tainted version. We will just test that a little bit further just to make sure that it feels as I am feeling it right now. Sorry, I feel like I'm stumbling over my words quite a bit today, but anyway, let's carry on here. So we'll go back to the Canyon of the Magi for a bit. So here we have the cold immunes and fire immunes. Obviously cold don't pose anything of a threat, but these fire immunes do go down relatively quickly with our Hex Purge. We'll see if we can find some more fire immunes in the tombs here. You do want to cast Sigil Lethargy again to increase your chance to hit enemies. Let's quickly go to the Chaos Sanctuary again, just to show you how this variant compares at that point in time. So we're doing about 3k damage with each of our Tainted, so that's almost 10k damage collectively between our Tainted. And our Hex Purge, it's hard to gauge off of your sheet damage because it's doing tons of these explosions every second, so it's a bit harder to sort of see. But as you can see, when we are using Hex Purge, we are taking care of these immunes quite effectively. So I think it's a bit of a toss-up, sort of getting to a conclusion and how this is sort of feeling to me whilst playing it. I think ultimately the main thing that you are going to notice and feel if you do play this hybrid Hex Purge and Tainted variant of this build, I think you're going to notice that if you're playing the pure Tainted Blood Boil variant, you are definitely going to deal with non-fire immunes a lot faster than if you're playing this hybrid Echoing Strike Tainted variant. But if you are playing the hybrid Echoing Strike Tainted variant, you're going to deal with immunes a lot quicker than the Blood Boil variant. So it's kind of a toss-up between if you want to deal with immunes better or if you want to clear non-immune areas a lot faster, or areas that have immunes but just the mobs that aren't immune a lot faster. So ultimately it is kind of much of a muchness if you are getting into it, especially at this budget level of gear. They are quite comparable to each other. I don't know if you are making any major leaps and bounds or strides if you go with one over the other. It does sort of just give you options to farm a bit broader variety of areas as the Tainted Hex Purge Echoing Strike hybrid variant of this build. Overall, I did absolutely fine playing just the pure Blood Boil Tainted variant, and with a little bit more gear and a Fire Sunder, you really can farm anywhere that you want, and immunes and high fire resist monsters are really not much of an issue in my opinion. Some people have sort of mentioned that they are feeling that Blood Boil is a little lackluster. I just personally think they're not using it in conjunction with Sigil Death well. They're not they don't have the right level of gear. I would say with about plus 15 into your demon tree, you are feeling very solid, very strong at that point in time. So again, just lastly, looking at this hybrid variant, we are dealing with fire immunes on players 1 very decently, and our kill speed in general is nothing to scoff at. I think we are doing a very reasonable sort of job at clearing the Chaos Sanctuary for the level of gear that we have. This is a level 85 area. There are very tough monsters in this area, and I think this is doing adequately well for the gear that we have equipped. So again, it's just Dual Spirit, Authority, Law, Angelic, 2-piece set, Credendum, Ravenfrost, Mage Fist, and Silkweave boots. So a very simple, very budget, very basic setup. So I hope that this kind of showed you the budget showcase of this variant of Bold. I do hope that your season is going well, and thank you very much for tuning into this video. If you do like this sort of content, please consider subscribing to the channel. That would be greatly appreciated. Any likes, views, shares, all of that good stuff is always appreciated, and we'll catch you again very soon for some more Mana and Motherboards. Cheers!